I was almost 3 years old when my family moved to the US from Jamaica. A few years after that, I announced that I was going to be a doctor. I made this decision based on zero data. There were no physicians in my family. I don't have a friend or relative who triumphed over a serious illness because of the skill and care of a team of healthcare providers led by a physician. I saw my doctor once a year for a checkup and vaccines. He was a white man. That didn't strike me as odd. At the time, I had no idea that 1/3 of 1% of the US population are physicians. And of that number, 2% are black women. So my parents' response to my highly statistically unlikely announcement, that's nice, honey. Tunnel vision took me through the K through 12 years, 4 years of undergrad, med school, and a master's in public health because apparently I have a thing for debt. At the end of that, I was technically a physician, but in order to be useful, I completed a residency in emergency medicine. I am an emergency physician. Emergency medicine is the distilled essence of my childhood imaginings of medicine. I see anybody who walks into the building and wants help. I've had patients who are minutes old and patients who are over 100. Every part of the socioeconomic spectrum, every walk of life. I don't choose my patients, but likewise, they don't choose me. I'm just the one who happens to be there when they come in. Now, I start almost every encounter the same way. I'm wearing blue scrubs and a long white coat with my name embroidered on it. There's a stethoscope hanging from a clip on my pants. I'm rubbing in some hand sanitizer so they know I'm not spreading germs. There's a name tag on my chest with a photo, a title, and a bright orange tag that hangs underneath it and says doctor in all caps. Hello, I'm Dr. Ennis. I'm the emergency physician. What brings you here today? I greet everyone in the room and pause, deliberately. Because unless I've seen this person before, there's always a moment where things shift. The first and only thing that people see when I walk in the room is a black woman with natural hair. They refer to the tech who did an EKG and brought it to me to interpret as the other doctor because he's a white man. Despite the costume, the optics I present do not say doctor. So I pause so that everyone in the room has a moment to reconcile the cognitive dissonance of who they see in front of them with what they just heard. And most of the time, that's all we need. But sometimes there's a little bit more. And there are a few questions that have always been asked repeatedly over the years. Oh, where are you from? How far back do you want to go? I was born in Jamaica, grew up outside of Philadelphia, and went to school up and down the Northeast. And most of the time, that's enough, and we can move on to the actual emergency that brought them here. But sometimes there's a follow-up. Oh, where did you go to school? Which one? I went to Brown undergrad NYU for med school. My master's in public health was at Harvard, and I did my residency at Mass General and the Brigham. Now that silences most folks, and we can move forward. But sometimes you need a little bit more. So I was, every now and then a patient borrows a phone in the emergency department. Their batteries run out, whatever. And I walked in to meet a new patient, and he looks up at me and says, oh, here's the phone girl. He says it to the nurse who handed him the phone in the first place. Because what is a phone girl? And then one of my recent favorites, this patient let me get through the whole introductory ritual. That was great. And then he said, but you don't look like a doctor. And I said, oh, what does a doctor look like? And he said, taller. I'm 5'8" barefoot. If that's not enough, I don't know what is. And then my guilty favorite of all time, you look too young to be a doctor. Now, in my mind, I'm saying black don't crack. But I smile. I say thank you. And it might be true that melanin and genetics have given me an edge on the game of visible aging. I'm pretty sure these questions are based on that which is never really said. I happened to be walking by a room one time, and I heard the patient and family just berating their nurse, demanding to know when they were going to be seen because they had been there for hours. And I step in to diffuse the situation and to reassure them that they have been seen and that I am, in fact, their doctor. I'd been in and out a couple of times already at that point. I had done a rectal exam. All I could think of is, why would you let me do that if you didn't think I was your doctor? Who do you think I was, the phone girl? So at this point, I've come to recognize that most of these conversations are really unique to me. And so I started to share them in real time with my colleagues. And it could probably go without saying that most of my physician colleagues in the emergency department are white men. And it could also probably go without saying that these are questions that most of them have never been asked, not even once. So much of my training, both formal and otherwise, is focused on relieving the discomfort of others. People come to an emergency department when they're hurt or scared or bothered or injured. And the fact is that my imperative is to take care of their discomfort in those moments. That goes without question. But in a non-clinical setting, or even in a medical setting but without regard to a clinical question, I still tend towards relieving the discomfort of others, even when it means ignoring or increasing my own. I had a patient a couple of months ago who was just lovely. There was no drama about me being her doctor. She was there with some family. They were all wonderful and kind. I was able to be in and out of the room a few times, share test results, a diagnosis, and the good news that she didn't have to stay in the hospital. And as is my routine, I asked if there were any other questions I could answer for them before I stepped out. And she said she had one. Are you a US citizen? That was new even for me. And I said, yes, I am. Are you a US citizen? And she got all flustered and said, well, of course I am. And I said, well, that's great. You have a wonderful rest of your day. Because at that moment, my job was no longer to relieve her discomfort. I had done that job, and she had given me a new assignment, which was to check her bias. At this point in my path, I am less and less inclined to turn a blind eye to these interactions. I know that most people don't intend to cause harm or hurt, but they have no idea of the cumulative impact of these conversations, nor do my colleagues. For them, it was one conversation. For me, it's the third slight that day. At this point, I reject the notion that these conversations are too uncomfortable or unpleasant to bring up. If it is uncomfortable to know that someone is being slowly poisoned, imagine how it feels to drink sips of poison every single day. Hello, I'm Dr. Ennis. I'm the emergency physician. What brings you here today?